All right, so we're going to tell me live. I think we are. Hello all and welcome back to the Women's Football Chat. We are back as always for a WSL weekend roundup. It's nice to be back to having a full WSL game week in over the weekend, and I think a lot of people, Harry, calling this one of the best weekends of the season. For the first time this season, we had 4 games televised at different times.
Wow, it's a
5
miracle.
games, sorry, televised at different times. And yes, the Merseyside Derby ran into the Manchester Derby. We can't have perfection, but we did actually get to watch a lot of WSL football this weekend.
Yeah, and it was really enjoyable, and I'm glad that we did because there were a lot of brilliant games. 3 domestic derbies, some brilliant clashes as well on the Sunday. What more could you want, really? And that's why we want to watch them. Great to be able to watch them at different times. Meant that we could stream as many as possible. Yeah, it was a brilliant weekend of action, and I'm glad we got to watch all of it because, as I say, most games delivered some absolute belting action.
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of one-sided affairs, a lot of high-scoring affairs, and a lot to get into over the next hour and a half. But where else to begin today's show than one of the 3 local derbies, and of course the Manchester Derby. Manchester United 0-3, Man City. A big victory for City, completing the double over United, the same scoreline as they registered earlier in the campaign back in November. Not the result United fans wanted, and it does now complicate their Champions League ambitions.
Yeah, it massively puts them on the back foot. I think that it's disappointing to be embarrassed in one derby, but to be dominated in both of the games will be thoroughly frustrating if you are of a Manchester United persuasion. I think that is really showing. After the outcome of this game, I think that United are under a lot of pressure now. As you say, their top 3 chances are dented massively. They're going to be put under a lot of pressure. Results elsewhere didn't go their way either this weekend. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on United now. They're on the back foot, but I think that it's this result is about the short-term disappointment, but I think it also highlights some bigger problems elsewhere that they've got to deal with. So yeah, a damning result. City have been brilliant, but United were miles off it.
Yeah, absolutely. And United, I think they started very slow in this game. Very sloppy. I think they were very weak defensively. If you look at all of the goals, there are defensive moments where players step up or jump up and just get it wrong, get the timings wrong, and leave players unmarked. Both of Viviana Miedemar's goals weren't defended particularly well. The Rebecca Knack disallowed goal, not defended particularly well. And then obviously they scored as well in the second half. Manchester City breaking down the left-hand side, cutting it back to Kasparai. Kasparai scoring well. A nice counter-attacking move. But United were just so open defensively. They kept trying to play out from the back, and City's pressing structure, as we've seen this season, one of the best pressing teams, if not the best pressing team in the league, they were just so aggressive, able to put so much pressure on Manchester United's backline, and they cracked under that. And City kept generating high turnovers, and they kept using that as a platform from which they could build. United in the first half didn't register a shot on target once again, made it a very long period then of football this season, almost 140 minutes, where they hadn't scored. They haven't taken a shot on target, against Manchester City. They didn't score in either of the games, of course. Second half, they started to get a little bit better, but that first half, particularly the start of the game, United nowhere near it.
Yeah, they really struggled. They couldn't get into the game. City were all over them, and it was difficult to watch. For Manchester United, I think that it's very hard when your team they're just constantly under pressure. United could not find a way to contain Man City and to actually get out of their game. Players didn't step up. Players didn't get into the game, get involved, and try and have an impact. It was really poor across the board. And when you don't deliver against Man City, they're going to take full advantage and they're going to cause you massive problems. And yeah, United didn't get going, and City kind of ran all over that.
Absolutely. As for City, though, took full advantage of those errors, ruthless attacking display. And yeah, I think a lot of the game, the discourse around the games revolved around fatigue and intensity. But that's absolutely where City were able to edge United with. The biggest difference was the intensity they played with, the aggression they were able to press with, the pace with which they moved the ball, the attacking combinations, and the understanding between their attacking players. There was a chance 3 minutes into the game where United are trying to play out from the back, and they actually do play forwards, but successfully get to the right-hand side of Nalsund, and then they're forced all the way back to their own goalkeeper. It's played into Miyazawa. She tries that reverse ball around the corner into Jade Riviere, or I think it's intended for Laetitia, but it ends up close to Riviere. Hemp pouncing it, and she plays a forward. It's a lovely combination between Shaw and Miedemar. It's fed out to Virginia, and Virginia really should score. And I think that really set the tone. A United side who had managed to get the ball forwards, were then shoveled all the way back by Man City, ended up making the mistake, and City almost found a route to goal from it. Really should have found a route to goal from it. So that was a real indication of, I think, how the rest of this game planned out, where United were struggling to build out. When they did get out, it wasn't really coming together in the final third, and City were so good at turning the ball over, moving the ball quickly into attacking areas, and then being just really clinical in front of goal. So super impressive again from Manchester City. And Viviana Miedemar, a word on her, Harry, fantastic performance.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I think that, of course, Khadija Shaw has taken the plaudits this season with her 18 goals, but this brace now puts Miedemar into the double digits, and I think that I don't think it's talked about enough. I think that she's had a phenomenal season. Working with Khadija Shaw, they've formed a brilliant partnership, and I think again Miedemar just showing that attacking prowess that she has, that natural instinct of a number 9 to well taken headed goals is what she's best at. I think that overall a brilliant game, both on and off the ball, and I think that she's really developed, and the way she's remained consistent. I think she's now. I believe I saw that she's now the first ever player to score, 10 or more goals in 5 consecutive seasons now in the WSL. It's ridiculous consistency and brilliance from Viviana Miedemar, and the fact that she's turning up and delivering in the biggest of games like a Manchester Derby is just a testament to her quality. But another brilliant game. United couldn't handle her. Dominated aerially, linked up really well with the likes of Shaw and Hemp, and yeah, Miedemar was phenomenal in this game.
Just a correction on that stat: it's not consecutive.
No, right.
So she's had 10. She scored 10 goals in the 18-19, 19-20, 2021, then 21-22. Didn't score 10 goals in her last 2 seasons at Arsenal. Didn't score 10 goals. I scored 11 total, but only 7 in the WSL last season. But yeah, coming back into real form, and I think the way that Jägler has been able to find a balance between Miedemar and Shaw, and I think that, I mentioned that chance a moment ago, but the way that those two have had an understanding and they've been able to play off of each other has been really impressive. I think where it really didn't work for Taylor is that he could never make those two players work together. Yeah. And so while obviously you had Viviana Miedemar, and she still did well because she's Viviana Miedemar, you weren't really getting the full effect. But now there's a really good understanding. When Shaw drops, Miedemar goes. When Miedemar drops, Shaw's in that position to be that striker. They're both great in the air, but they're both, they're still decently agile.
Yeah.
So they can both do those roles, and it gives City this great exit ball. One thing that United really struggled with is when City pressed them aggressively, they had no exit because they were trying to play it long when they were under pressure. And you've got Schuler and Awujo.
Yeah.
Neither of them are going to make the ball stick, and this is really where they missed Turland, because Turland could absolutely jostle with Rebecca Nack. Arsenal had a similar issue in terms of that when they played Manchester City, they weren't going to be able to go long, but they were able to play out of it because they had Mariona Caldente and they were fantastic being able to play through the press. Maybe if United had Ziggy Otioma, this might have been a different game, but I don't think it would have changed too much. But United were forced into having to play over the press, and they didn't have anyone up there that could make the ball stick. I thought there's a couple of times where Rujo actually managed to bring it down quite well, but then she looks around and City just swarm her.
Yeah.
There's just really amusing moments where she brings the ball down like Hasegawa, Coffey, and Rebecca Nack have all stepped, and she had nowhere to play. And that was a real problem for Manchester United, was just they had no way to get out. Because they try to play it forward, City going to press it aggressively and turn it over. If you try and go over the top, well, Rebecca Nack's heading it back the other direction. Yeah. So they really struggled with that, I think. And yeah, that relationship between Miedemar and Shaw, as I was saying, has been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, United better in the second half. Obviously, the only goal they conceded in that half was the counter. Admittedly, obviously, City didn't have to play with the same intensity, given they already had a decent lead by that point. But United never really liked scoring, and Yamashita wasn't really on a game. She dropped. There was a chance at the start of the second half where she drops it, and Lea Schuler picks it up. Right in the penalty area, but can't quite find the back of the net. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, I thought. But United definitely were better in the second half. But City now storming towards glory. 5 points needed now. 3 matches left, all of whom are against bottom 4 opposition. and they could win it in the next match week. City, very impressive.
Yeah, they've been absolutely brilliant, and as you say, they've it's an easy run in now for them to pick up the points that they need. But that's it. At the end of the day, when they get the fixtures through, that's exactly what they were looking to do. They've done the hard part. They've beaten their rivals. They've beaten the likes of Arsenal. They've beaten the likes of Chelsea, and now they get to play those easier sides just to see out this league title, which they should do with absolutely no problems. They've enjoyed a brilliant season, and I think this was, although it isn't the crowning moment, I still think this is the big one now. They've got past their last tough test. They're still quite far clear at the top. Yeah, they're well on their way. They've been absolutely brilliant this season, and they thoroughly deserve to take the title, which I'm very, very sure they will wrap up in the next couple of match weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, welcome, by the way, to Phil, A27 and Anthony, all getting involved in the live chat. We will get to the big moment to talk about. Obviously, I put out a message on X for anyone that doesn't have X for very valid reasons, and didn't see that. I asked people, who do you think, or what do you think should happen with Mark Skinner? Should he be sacked? Should he stay? 86 replies to that post. So I think that tells you everything about how much of a debate there has been on that topic, and we will get to that in a moment. But let's start with, is it just fatigue for Manchester United? Mark Skinner's post-match comments, he said, we're limited with the squad we have. The players are giving everything we've got. It's nothing to do with anything more than that. He went on to mention other interviews, and I think in the same comment that there's a lack of squad depth, and that really needs addressing in the summer. And this isn't a new revelation for Manchester United. But does that do enough to explain or excuse the performance? Or are there other factors for you that would come into it rather than it just being fatigue, which is how Skinner's attributed it?
Yeah, I think there's more to it than that. I think especially on the bit about him saying the players are giving everything that they've got, I that one surprises me. And I know people will say that they're tired and that's why the performances aren't coming. But there's been games this season where players have just been really below par. I mean, in this game, I thought Letizia really struggled, Turner really struggled. I mean, the whole back line did, to be completely honest. I think that there's certain players aren't getting into games. We didn't see Melvin Mallard in this Manchester derby. I think that too many times they can use this fatigue element, but individuals aren't performing. Individuals aren't stepping up. United would have games like this last season, but someone like a Letizia would drag it through them. So, the big players would step up. They'd find a goal. They'd make a goal-saving block up the other end. Something would happen, but individuals aren't stepping up for Manchester United. They're not delivering to the level they need to. And yes, they are probably struggling because you're asking the same 11 individuals to do it every 4 days, but I still think that certain players aren't performing the way they need to be. They're not delivering. I think that I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised. I think that, yes, Skinner, of course, himself gets things wrong, but I'm surprised at him solely blaming it on fatigue. And I'm surprised that, not really surprised at the fans not blaming any of the players, because I think to overlook the performances of certain individuals just because people like them, I think that's a little bit misguided, because there are big players, there are well-known players that are not delivering this season.
I think it's a mixture of things, but I do think fatigue plays the biggest role in this, and lack of squad depth, which I think kind of go hand in hand, because I don't think anyone can sit there with a straight face and say that if Manchester United have the same squad depth that City do, or the same squad fitness as City do. City have no one out injured right now. They've got not a single player that's missing, I believe. Laura Weinreuter, maybe. So yeah, I don't think they've got anyone out injured at the moment. Manchester United have Ella Toon, Anna Sandberg, Elizabeth Turland. They had Dominic Janssen out for this game. Zigiotti was suspended, which didn't help things further. That's like, apart from Letizia, that's all of their best players. And maybe, apart from Letizia and Riviere. But yeah, I think when the problem with a lot of the Skinner out brigade, and there are some justified, reasons why you'd want Mark Skinner to be sacked. I think that sometimes he is too defensive with his tactics. I think sometimes he is too risk averse. And I think there are some decisions in terms of player management and decisions in terms of squad rotation, which he has got wrong. I think he is a little bit too slow to integrate youth team players. But I think there are far more reasons that Mark Skinner's done a fantastic job. In 5 years at Manchester United, he's taken a team who'd only just joined the WSL to be regularly competing in the top 4, to win an FA Cup, to get to a League Cup final, to run Chelsea close to a title a couple of years ago. All in that time, having nowhere near the budget of Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal. And I think it's very easy to say. I mean, I think a big thing is that when I read through all the responses, it was either Phil mentioned Pizze, so I didn't even mention Pizze in that, but yeah, big loss. When I read through all the responses, there's very little valid reasons. It's a lot of I don't like Skinner, so I want him gone. But there is very little, and I think there are people out there that have justified reasons they don't want Mark Skinner to be the manager of Manchester United anymore. But I think a lot of it is people jumping on the bandwagon of, all the other people that I like don't like Mark Skinner, so I don't like Mark Skinner. But I don't feel there's any... I don't think he should be sacked, in my opinion. I think he's done a fantastic job with Manchester United. I think there's a lot of confusion over who does the transfers, because there's been a lot of people saying, well, he brought in 2 strikers in the January transfer window. It's not like FIFA. Quite frankly, he didn't make the transfers. That will be, of course, he has a say and he's the manager, but that is the duty of the recruitment team. And maybe that's where the eyes should look at who's bringing in those signings, who's making those decisions. But ultimately, I don't think Skinner's done a bad job. And I think people who say he hasn't made anyone better, hasn't developed anyone, I just find laughable. I mean, Jess Park, I think, has developed massively this season with Skinner giving her more freedom. He's really developed Toon into the player that she is now. And I don't think there's any reason for him to be sacked. Obviously, this came in the light of reports suggesting that if United don't qualify for the Champions League, that there will be discussions around his future. Now, this has been greatly exaggerated because I think when you look at the headline that's been going around on Twitter and on all social media is that Skinner performance will be reviewed at the end of the season. And I think it's very easy for again, because it's social media, for the narrative to get twisted in a certain way. When you actually read the article from Centre Devils, I believe it is, or Devils Centre, one of those, something like that, the journalist whose name I forget now, mentions that his performance is under review. And United are looking at just considering their options, which you would do with any manager in this situation, and that Champions League football would really put more pressure on Skinner going into that review over the summer. So it's not, if he doesn't get Champions League football, he's going to be sacked immediately. And I do think people have jumped on some of the wording in that article and some of the bits that media and social media platforms, social media accounts, I should say, have taken out of context, that have changed the situation quite a lot. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see what happens in the summer. I personally don't think he will be sacked. No. I don't think United will get Champions League football, but I don't think he'll be sacked. And I think actually going into next season, United not having Champions League football and having Skinner at the helm, the longest serving WSL manager now, I think it's a great situation because they're going to go into next season having less games than any of the top 3 sides. They'll be able to get their squad back to full fitness. I think it will give them a great chance to have a lot of domestic success, to go and try and win the League Cup, which they really should do if they don't have Champions League football, to go as deep into the league or close to the title as they can, as deep in the FA Cup as they can. I think it would really give them an opportunity to establish themselves domestically, while Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City then have to contend with the additional Champions League fixtures. I don't think the United team's anywhere near being ready to win the Champions League. No. So it's apart from the revenue from it, which is of course a big hit, there isn't a massive reason. There isn't a massive drop off for me of not being in the Champions League. I think they've got the squad now. They need the floor and they need more players and they need squad depth if they're going to compete in the Champions League. But if they're not in the Champions League, they don't necessarily need too many signings this summer. Yeah, I think exactly that. They have to. They can't try and address the situation now. I think they have to wait and see where they're at because. I mean, I would be very intrigued to see what the reaction would be if in 3 days' time Manchester United are Champions League semi-finalists, and suddenly people are trying to sack a man that's got Manchester United into the last 4 of the Champions League, which would be an incredible feat. And yes, they are losing on aggregate, but they're only a goal down. Suddenly the narrative shifts massively from sack him to, well, hang on a minute, because we're 2 games away from we're 1 game away from a Champions League final. So I think football is very fickle, and I think that it can change in an instant as well. So I think that they could win the majority of their games at the end of the season. They get to the last 4 of the Champions League, and there's still a chance they do finish in the top 3. So yeah, I think people are very quick to get rid of him, and as you say, there's a lot of. I think if you've got a valid reason, then that's absolutely fine. That's fair enough. But if your reason is sack Mark Skinner because because of some personal dislike, football clubs don't work like that. Well, I think as A27 says, he's rubbish, and United should be trying to push up a level. I'm yet to see a valid criticism of him. Even we had 86 replies, and of all of them, it's just he should have been gone ages ago. People saying he should be arrested. for crimes against football, which is amusing. But as Phil says, push up a level to who? Who do United get if Skinner goes?
Yeah.
So it's going to come at the end of the season, right? He's not going to get sacked with 3 games left of the campaign and 1 Champions League game. So it's going to come at the end of the season. If they haven't got Champions League football next season, who comes? Like, I saw someone say try and get Petter Hardson, which is, yeah, maybe that would work, but he also hasn't been in the domestic game for a good while now. And so that's a big shift for him. And I know, you look at Andre Yeglers, but Yeglers has only had about, I think it was 4 or 5 years in the international game before he came back into domestic football. And he had 20 years of experience before that. So that's a very different situation. There are people out there you can go get, but I don't think there's anyone, Jocelyn Proyshare, does he come in and make them necessarily a better team than Skinner does? I don't think so. Do you punt on a Vidicic? Possibly he does better long term, but is he going to do better short term when really I think United should be looking at next season as a great opportunity if they don't get Champions League football? Probably not. Are they going to get Martin Ho? No. What is the motivation for Martin Ho to leave a Tottenham project where they're investing and bringing players he wants to a United project where they're not going to give him the same money and they're not going to go out and buy the same players? So yeah, I don't think sacking Skinner is the answer. I think he deserves next season at least. If without Champions League football they don't win anything domestically, then I think in 2027 those questions come back up again. But for me, I don't think there's anyone on the market right now that United could get who is an immediate upgrade on Mark Skinner. I saw some people want Casey Stoney back. Is she going to come back? Probably not. So yeah, again, it's that same sort of situation where there isn't really anyone attainable. I saw someone say, go and get Emma Hayes. Emma Hayes isn't leaving the US a year before the World Cup after she's just joined them. So yeah, I don't think there's anyone that would make them necessarily better. Anyway, let's get to our next game then, which was an absolutely ridiculous match. Chelsea 4, 3 Aston Villa. Absolutely ridiculous game. I thought Chelsea were the better side throughout, but Aston Villa did really well to capitalise on a couple of Chelsea errors.
Yeah, this was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. I've never seen two sides that have looked so open but so clinical in front of, well, in Aston Villa's case, so clinical in front of goal. But yeah, I thought that, as you say, Aston Villa, brilliant. They had 3 shots on target and scored 3 goals. I mean, that is incredibly impressive. Clinical. But I'll be honest.
Not a great stat for Hannah Hampton, and we will get to that.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't. But I thought Villa did well. But I'll be honest, this game got created. One of the basic things in football when you're playing an opponent is that you keep their strongest player quiet. Yet these two sides both just threw that out the window because Aston Villa decided to let Lauren James do whatever she wanted and Chelsea just allowed Kirsty Hansen to do whatever she wanted. And both of them were absolutely brilliant in this game because no one decided to deal with them. If from a Chelsea point of view, Aston Villa have been really poor in front of goal, bar Kirsty Hansen. You just shut her down, but they didn't, and they go and score 3 goals from 3 shots on target. Aston Villa, you go, right, Chelsea, you've got to stop Lauren James because she's magic. Do they do that? No, they just let her walk around the edge of the area and do what she wants. So this was a 7-goal thriller. It took me back a bit to Emma Hayes, Chelsea, definitely towards the end. I think to the 4-3 away at Liverpool, which Chelsea did lose, but that kind of game where Chelsea were good going forwards, but really poor at the back. I thought that they did well to come through it, and I think that the second half was much more controlled. But yeah, it was a ridiculous 45 minutes.
Yeah, the game became very transitional, and then relied on individual players to step up at the end. And I think that was sort of like Emma Hayes' motto. If they'd get into that position and they'd find a way. And I think that is a crucial thing actually that Bob Pastor has to bring those players, or it's 2 players who started actually had the impact towards the end, but. For those players to step up and in that environment was really important. I think showing the value really of players like Nusken and Kerr who've been there throughout that era, whereas certain players I think really struggled to motivate themselves in that moment and it's just about finding a way, which Sam Kerr is the best at. So yeah, I think I think Chelsea really demonstrated their attacking muscle in this game. I think if you look at how they set up in this game, I really like the midfield setup. Erin Cuthbert is one of my favourite Chelsea players of all time, but without her in the midfield, it's just so much more functional. The way that there is a much more complementary relationship between Nusken and Walsh, because Nusken's a bit more mobile and good at just rotating the ball, moving the ball quite quickly, and I think that they were able to recycle it and maintain possession for good periods of time, Chelsea. because that midfield really worked together. And they just set up a platform with Captain dropping and Nuskin, and it was really fluid in that midfield. Even Walsh was pushing up at times and letting the other two drop deeper. It was great to see that kind of fluidity. And it really set up a platform for the attacking players to thrive. So much space in the central areas. You look at all the goals apart from the one where Lauren James just tries to score from a corner and Germa gets a touch on it. You look at all the goals. The first goal, Chelsea scored to level the game. It's Nuskin breaking into a load of space in midfield because they've been able to draw Villa's midfield in. So there's then that gap between Villa's midfield and the back line. She's into that space and she slots a ball in behind for Sam Kerr, who makes a run off the shoulder of the defender. Perfect run to then get into that position to score, to absolutely smash it past Ellie Roebuck, really. That was created through that midfield being able to draw players in and having the technical quality to play out of those pockets and play into the space. Lauren James's, only goal, but what could have been her second goal, it was a bit confusing with Opta. But obviously the corner is a fantastic delivery from Lauren James, just shone with the space. But the next goal for James, she picks up the ball on the right-hand side and just bursts past Noel Moritz. Moritz has to do more. Got to commit the foul there for me, because you can't let Lauren James in that kind of area. She gets into the middle, and there's no one there for Aston Villa to get in front of it. And she just smashes it towards the front post. It's a fantastic goal. And yeah, that space vacated, and obviously the third goal coming in central areas as well, a little bit of a tighter space, but still they're able to get players on the ball in those positions. That space created just allowed the attacking players to thrive, and there were some lovely combinations. And yeah, I think they did really well here, Chelsea. Some lovely combinations, lovely attacking play. And they were great coming forwards. Where they weren't so great, though, was defensively, Harry. Aston Villa devastating in the counter-attack, and Chelsea a plethora of defensive mistakes.
Yeah, Chelsea were all over the place, and I think that that it's individual errors when the same players for the opposition are causing the same thing. I mean, Lynn Vilm's got 3 assists. Someone's got to clock that by the time she's done it once, and then when she does it twice, you've got to shut her down. But yeah, Chelsea all over the place. Yes, it's a bit of a makeshift back four, but they're professional footballers. I thought that Lucy Bronze had an absolute mare and should made a mistake in part of all 3 goals. I thought that wasn't helped out but defensively by anyone else in the back line, and Hampton did struggle on a couple. But yeah, Villa were really good at coming forwards. I think it's what they can be very, very good at. It's why they've got results against big sides. And they got the draw against City. That was a 0-0 though. They got the draw against Arsenal. They got the win at Man United. It's why they're really good at getting results against the big teams, because of that counter threat. Because of players like Kirsty Hansen, who can just, you give her one chance and she will take it. And I think that Villa did very well to kind of pull Chelsea apart and turn this into a very open game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree on Lucy Bronze. I think you mentioned there that Hansen had so much space to work with in this game. But I think if you start Buchanan or you start Bjorn, if Bjorn's fit, then I don't think Chelsea concede in this game.
Yeah.
Because you look at the first goal. Does Bjorn pass it aimlessly into the middle of midfield, make a complete mess of it that Aston Villa then capitalise on? Probably not. No. Does she, for the second goal, allow the ball to come across her body and Hansen to just score rather than making a challenge? Probably not. For the third goal, does she attempt to head it and get it horribly wrong when she heads it back up into the air, which the rest of the back line don't react to, and they absolutely should. But that should be headed away. Any other defender, any centre-half in the league, and this is perhaps where the problem lies, but any centre-half in the league heads that away.
Yeah.
But Bronze makes a right mess of it. And I just think on all the goals, Bronze didn't do enough. And I think, and of course, there are other people at fault. I think for the first goal, Naomi Gurma's got to track the runner, Chastity Grant.
Yeah.
I think that's really poor from Gurma. Again, it's very early in the game. Mistakes like that do tend to happen when you're not quite into the game yet.
Yeah.
But no mistake. No mistakes. She's got to do better there. Hampton as well, for me, could do more on all 3 goals. I think particularly the first one, though, in at your near post, that has to be a save from Hannah Hampton. Hermes is in live chat as well. Hampton hasn't been herself lately. Not sure what's going on there. Worrying times. For me, it's a lack of competition. You think about Chelsea goalkeepers of the past. There's a Musovic sat on the bench ready for your starting spot. So you don't make mistakes. But I think that complacency has crept in. We saw that against Brighton. You shouldn't be making a mistake where you let the ball go and it goes in. You don't see that you shouldn't see that at grassroots football, let alone at the top levels. That was really poor. And we've just seen a chain of mistakes since then, where perhaps then that confidence goes after one mistake. And I think that could very much be it. But no goalkeepers had a good season this year.
No.
I was saying this the other day.
No.
All the goalkeepers in the league seem to have had tough runs at some point. And yeah, so I was disappointed with Hampton. I've been disappointed with her recently, but yeah, I thought again, all three of these goals could have done more about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's the frustrating part, is that it's one of those where if your goalkeeper's having a good day, Villa don't score all three of those. And I think it's been the case for other teams. It comes back to United with Talis Joyce. If you get Talis Joyce in the form she was last season, the United probably wouldn't have conceded as many as they did in certain games. And I think it's the same with Hampton here. Chelsea's made really hard work of it. I think that going a goal behind against Aston Villa is it's not what Chelsea would have wanted, but Villa are a good side. They countered well. That's fair enough. Once and then Chelsea would get back in the high, get back into the lead, but then it was that reaction, and I think again it's something I mentioned, and it comes from those errors from from the key players defensively. But Chelsea had a real problem reacting. It took Chelsea it wasn't until Chelsea were 2-0 down against Arsenal at the Emirates where they reacted. The City game, they never reacted at any point in that football match. But I think that, again, it took till the second half for Chelsea to then get the ball down and react to being 3-3 with Aston Villa and eventually go and get that goal with 8 minutes to go. So, yeah, it was better. But, I think mistakes from key players in defensive areas is overall, not just with Hampton, but overall is hurting Chelsea a bit.
Yeah, a lot of people speaking on Bronze in the live chat. Nigel saying Bronze was horrid in this game. Hermes said, I'd high hopes for Germa. Bronze, though, was a disaster. A27 says it's time for Bronze to leave football before the football leaves her. I think my opinion on Lucy Bronze seems to flip-flop every week. I just don't see a world where Chelsea lose Bright and Kerr and let Lucy Bronze go this summer. I think that would leave a gap in the leadership team. Now, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, and you let some of the new players step up into those positions. I mean, you've got Erin Cuthbert still, who I don't think will leave this summer. There's a chance, but I don't think she'll leave this summer. You've got other players that can step up into leadership positions. Maybe you look at a Natalie Bjorn, a Kadisha Buchanan to come in, and they've still got that experience, particularly, of course, Kadisha Buchanan. But yeah, I think my opinion changes on Bronze so often. But maybe as a squad player and as someone who can stay, I wouldn't be surprised. Especially because we know Bon Pastor has a really good relationship with Bronze, had her at Lyon, and then has brought her across to Chelsea when she joined 2 summers ago. I think that I think she will keep her and keep her as someone that she trusts and a voice in the changing rooms that will inspire the younger players. Chelsea's average age of the squad's going to shoot down next season. It's going to be like low 20s at this rate. But yeah, I think maybe keeping Bronze in there just to make sure that's still above 25 might be a good idea. But yeah, really struggled. Nuskan, though, saving the day. And obviously, Sam Kerr and Nuskan, 2 players who didn't get a lot of game time in the first half of the season. Kerr obviously out injured and was still coming back. Nuskan has had a few knocks this season, hasn't really been in favour with Bon Pastor, has played a lot more recently now that she's fully fit. And there aren't any other players. And those two coming up with the goods. And then that winner laid off brilliantly by Sam Kerr. It's pounced on well by Ernie Carpenter, laid off then well by Sam Kerr. Shocker Nuskan. Fantastic finish.
Yeah, I think this was class from Nuskan. Of course, Lauren James, nearly scored from a corner and her finish was quality. But I think that this, for me, was the goal of the game. Absolute brilliance from Nuskan to take this finish on first time and to just curl it past Roebuck into the far corner is absolute class from Nuskan. I thought it was a phenomenal finish. To take a touch and do that is impressive, but to do that first time, of course, it's also you have to give credit a little bit to the layoff from Sam Kerr because it was perfect. If it's a bad layoff, then Nuskan doesn't do that. So credit to Kerr for that. But the technique from Nuskan on this strike was absolutely brilliant. It was a winning goal that Chelsea did deserve on reflection, especially after a bit more of a steady second half, and a vital goal. And I think you could tell that around Kingsmeadow and the players on the pitch that was a big goal for how Chelsea's season may end up finishing.
Absolutely. And what do we always say on this channel? Shocker Nuskan scores goals, scoring a massive one here. In terms of ramifications, Chelsea making up ground in the race for Europe. Important 3 points. Chelsea back up to second now. A 2-point gap to Arsenal, of course, have those games in hand. A 2-point gap to Manchester United. I think Chelsea will look back now at some of those results this season with real frustration.
Yeah.
Much people talk about how bad this season's been for Chelsea. They're 9 points behind Manchester City. And, even outside, the City, of course, the City result was terrible. The game against Arsenal was terrible. But you take away the loss to Everton, the draw with London City, suddenly they don't look a million miles away. And I'm not saying they should win the title this year. They're not being good enough. But a couple stupid results in there have stopped them from being very comfortably second place in the league.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it's been dramatised quite a lot this season. Chelsea have completely fallen off. But it's a couple results. And the WSL having so few games, of course, makes every game so important.
Yeah.
But yeah, a draw with London City this season and a loss with Everton, a draw with Liverpool. That without those three results, they're in the title race.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think they're as far away as some people will make out. And I think, yes, this summer will be a rebuild, but there's lots of positives that we've seen this season. The way that I think Bon Pastor has shifted the setup. I don't think that Chelsea have competed well enough with some of the top sides in the league. And that will be a concern. But I think a lot of that can be attributed down to fatigue. And in the first half of the season, Bon Pastor experimenting. But before the injuries, Chelsea beat Manchester City on the opening day, drew with Arsenal at the Emirates, where they had opportunities in the first half they just didn't take, and drew with Manchester United, a game they really should have won. They had so many point-blank opportunities.
Yeah.
I think Captain scored, but she could have had another. Beaver Jones missed one at the front post. So the second half season fallen apart, but I think a big reason for that is has been the injuries. And I think a lot of people quick to write Chelsea off for next season because this season hasn't gone well. And I mean, we've had the same thing with Skinner of Sonia out. She's terrible. She shouldn't be anywhere near the Chelsea team. And I think it's been so over-dramatised. Chelsea is still going to come out this season with at least one trophy.
Yeah.
Still the opportunity for two more. And while the Champions League feels like it's out of Chelsea's reach at the moment, it's not impossible they turn things around on Wednesday and perhaps then look at, well, possibly a Wolfsburg semi-final, which you'd have to consider them favourites for. So, yeah, there's a long way to go. I'm not too worried about Chelsea's future. I think this summer will be telling. I think the bigger concern is how Chelsea recruit this summer. New director of football, no idea how good he's going to be.
Yeah.
Let's find out. But as for Aston Villa, they dropped down to 9th. What do you make of how their season started to pan out?
This game absolutely sums up this season, but I feel like I say that every game about Aston Villa. This game sums up their season because they could have easily got something from it. They scored 3 goals against the reigning champions and lost. That is the most Aston Villa thing I've ever heard.
I think the problem with Villa, what they usually do is miss their chances.
That is true.
It's a bit different because they actually took them.
They did, but I just think it's difficult. Arroyo has got to find some balance. I think that they're either too defensive and in the games against weaker opposition they're too cautious and then they get caught out because they don't take their chances and the weaker side do. And I think in the big games they can be a little bit too aggressive where it makes them very good on the counter. To be fair, they usually get it right in big games. They are very much a big games team, but it makes it difficult because you're best at setting up against the best sides in the league, which is difficult because you no matter how you set up, you're usually going to lose those games. They've got to get better, Villa, at beating the sides around them. They've had so many silly results. They, as I mentioned, they're point against City, who have stormed the league. Point against Arsenal away at the Emirates, beat Man City away, but they've gone and lost to teams like West Ham, lost to teams like
United, not City.
United. I've already mentioned the City game. But yeah, they've lost teams like West Ham, dropped points to Leicester, dropped points to teams that have been really poor this season. So yeah, 9th looks bad, but I think there is quality in that side. I think Arroyo's a good manager if she can find some balance, but someone's got to start helping Kirsty Hansen. 12 goals, by the way, this season for Kirsty Hansen. That is incredibly impressive.
I can't wait to see who buys her and realises it's a massive overperformance. Huge credit to her, but it's not sustainable. Aston Villa this season have averaged about 1.24 XG a game, and she scored 12 goals.
Yeah.
Her XG is nowhere near that. In fact, we can find it quickly. But yeah, I mean, it's still so tight in there at the moment in the table. There's 1 point separating them in 6th. But yeah, Kirsty Hansen has 12 goals this season from 6.6 XG.
Wow.
That isn't a replicable overperformance, really. Almost double the chances that you've had. And, I mean, form plays into that massively. Whenever she gets in front of goal at the moment, she's finding the back of the net. The second goal for her in this game was, I think, a 0.6 XG chance, because a 0.06, sorry, XG chance. Like the first goal she scored was a 0.6. Is that close to the goal? But yeah, I think with Aston Villa, they're not too far off with. Again, I think you're right with what you say about balance, but it's more that, against City a few weeks ago, they're a bit too cautious. In this game, they're a bit too open. Leicester, they're a bit too cautious. I think they nailed the defensive setup against City, and that was fine, and they got the draw, and that's great. But then when you don't smashed some of the smaller teams in the league, they've got to be able to have that difference. I think it has worked better recently with them being a little bit more aggressive, but then they used the more aggressive setup against Chelsea, which feels like a bizarre choice. And a Chelsea team, without making those mistakes, would have won this game 4-0.
Yeah.
If Bronze isn't making those big errors, if Hampton is on form, they don't concede in this game.
Yeah.
So I think Villa have done well to be in the position they're in. They're only, as I say, only a point off sixth. They've got left to play this season: Arsenal, West Ham, London City. They should take 6 points there, and they could very much finish top half. If they don't win those games, they'll finish 9th or possibly even 10th. That doesn't look particularly good. So. Still lots to play for Villa, but I definitely think they should be beating London City. Definitely think they should be beating West Ham, and they should be absolutely fine then to finish near around 6th or 7th. So wouldn't be too worried. Let's get on then. We spent 40 minutes on the first 2 matches. Always going to be a long time. Let's get on to another derby. Then the Merseyside Derby up next. Everton 2, Liverpool 3. Game of 2 halves, really. Liverpool dominant though in the first.
Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. As you say, very much a game of 2 halves, and I think that the scoreline makes this game... I think this game's a lot more cut and dry than the scoreline suggests. But yeah, Liverpool, 45 minutes, were absolutely brilliant. They completely opened up the Everton back line. They were had them all over the place. They looked so dangerous. They had many players getting involved in the goals and causing issues. They could have had a couple more than 3. Clark hit the post from a corner, and other players had some big chances. But yeah, they were absolutely brilliant come forwards, Liverpool, in that first half, and really put a lot of pressure onto Everton. Those away fans behind the goal were absolutely loving it. I think 3 well taken goals, and at half time they were in complete control of the match. Yeah, Liverpool, were absolutely brilliant in that first 45 minutes, and it was just another showing of the developments that they've made across this season.
They're super fun to watch. I think Taylor coaches good football. I think we saw that for City for years. I think a lot of people quite unfairly attributed their problems last season to Taylor, and the problems at the start of this season for Liverpool to Taylor. But on both accounts, they didn't really have the players to make anything work. They were so good in this game. Direct. They had some great combinations in the final play. I think particularly Holland's third goal, where she's able to combine nicely down the left-hand side. She breaks into a load of space. Should do a lot better, Martina Fernandez. But yeah, really enjoyable to watch and clinical in front of goal. And yeah, really enjoyable game for Liverpool, really. For Everton, though, very poor, very weak defensively. Let's start with a penalty. It's an unfortunate one for Ima Gabaro, but absolutely the right decision.
Yeah, it's a penalty. She puts her arm above her head. I think that there's a slight movement up towards the ball as well, which doesn't help, of course. But yeah, it's a penalty. You can't put your arms up there. It was Fisk. I think it was Fisk who flicked it to goalwards, but yeah, penalty finished off well by Holland, but it's really clumsy defending. Gabaro, you can't put your arms up there at a corner, and someone's got to, they've got to deal with that before it gets there.
Yeah, absolutely. The own goal for Martina Fernandez, the ball floated in there. I get what she's trying to do, but makes a right mess of it and heads it past corner Bryson. It was a great attacking header.
It was.
Yeah, big mistake from Fernandez.
Yeah, it was a good header. I think that the football before the football to lead to this own goal deserved a goal. It was, McLean rode a challenge, laid it off. They combined really nicely. It was McLean, Capox, got it out wide. Ball comes in, and yet Fernandez puts it in for them. But that football through the lines, through the middle of the park, was well deserving of that second goal going in.
Absolutely. And then a wonderful individual goal, as I mentioned a moment ago, from Holland cutting inside, putting it top corner. But again, I think Martina Fernandez has to do a lot better. Shows her inside too easily. And yeah, Holland cuts in, finds the back of the net. A very difficult morning for Martina Fernandez, who made a whole host of errors in this game. And as Phil says, Fernandez is a good footballer, but a bit of a nightmare as a defender. Way too many errors for a centre-back. I think, kind of the Barcelona thing, isn't it? Of she's been developed in that system where it's more about being good on the ball than being able to be physical and strong as a defender. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, there were Barcelona fans at the start of the season, and I think after Martina Fernandez scored a goal, saying, we really need her back. It'd be great to have her back as a centre-half. We're really light on defenders. And she may be better suited to that kind of environment, but has really struggled with defending this season. Good on the ball, but has struggled a bit with the physicality of the league, struggled a bit with the intensity of the league, and I think has made too many errors in that competition, as Phil says in the live chat. But Everton did fight back in the second half. Again, as you say, the scoreline flatters them somewhat. A free kick from Aurora Ghali, which takes a huge deflection off of Olsen. I'm a little surprised it was given as Ghali's goal. I guess the shot was on target, but it was deflected so immensely, and it finds the back of the net.
Yeah, this was the perfect example of why you never back out of anything in football, because it always comes off worse off than you expect. Usually people say that about tackles, because if you back out, you're more likely to get injured. But with this one, Olsen tries to move. I guess it's a natural reaction because the ball was going to hit her head, but she tries to move out of the way. And because of that, rather than it just hitting her flat in the face and getting blocked, she kind of moves out of the way and it then just skims off her and obviously completely wrong foots Falcon net. And poor from Olsen. If you're going to be in the wall, your job's to block it, not to, to move out of the way of it and end up flicking it into the back of the net. But a very favourable deflection for Everton.
Striker's instinct.
Maybe,
Great movement to move it towards goal there.
Yeah.
But it was poor, I thought, from Beta Olsen. The Fisk red card then, silly, really silly from Grace Fisk. I can see the frustration because the Kramjar shove is so unnecessary. But I think you're captain in the Merseyside Derby. You've got to lead by example. And acting out in that way, reacting to Kramjar, trying to frustrate you. It's smart, albeit illegal, from Zara Kramjar, but Fisk just sees red and gets sent off.
Yeah, it was very naughty from Grace Fisk, and it surprised me a lot because, as you say, captain, you expected to step up. It's Kramjar. I think I've seen a lot of people say that she shouldn't have got a second yellow card because the game should have been stopped when Kramjar shoved her, but. Because the assistant referee is the one who gives it, because obviously the referee isn't looking. It's off the ball and Fisk just swipes her legs out from underneath her. But the assistant referee's not going to stop the football game for a shove, because you don't. It'd be very, very silly to do that. But because Fisk is already on a yellow card and she retaliates, that's always going to get stopped. And it's an easy second yellow to give, even if the referee didn't see it. You've got two other people on that sideline who did. It's naughty from Fisk because she did it because she thought she would get away with it. She didn't. I thought and again, it depends how you're reading it, but then she just walks off, doesn't talk to anybody, and throws the captain's armband on the floor. And again,
that wasn't a good look for me.
It wasn't a good look. I thought because, again, it goes to, because the armband has to stay on the pitch, but she should just pass it to someone. It was very bizarre that she just threw it on the floor and walked off. I thought she's been brilliant as Liverpool captain, but this was a very bizarre minute. Because, in the end, very, very bizarre moment with that whole thing, and it very nearly cost her side. If we, looking at the result, so got away with one and understandably sent off.
It's the kind of immature thing you expect from sort of a young player, but Fisk isn't a young player. She's 28. She's the captain of this Liverpool side. I think it's really disappointing. And a player who was in and around the England squad at the last camp, a player who. There is a consideration. Could she be on the plane going into the next World Cup? The England centre-half options now, with a couple that have gone the last few years, with Bright, I don't think Carter's going to be at the next World Cup. I think there'd be a conversation about her over Lotte Wubben-Moy, but this just dampens her chances. And I just think you don't need to react in this way. Really poor from Grace Fisk. And absolutely could have cost them. And it gave Everton a real chance. But Everton couldn't take it, could they? So many shots in that second half. Absolutely peppered the goal. 16 shots, 5 on target, 24 touches in the opposition box, but just couldn't find a way through. Jennifer Falk, so important, with some big saves in there. And Kramjar scored in the 91st minute. Didn't matter though. That felt like too little too late, and Liverpool did just about see out the result.
I'm surprised, to be honest, that Everton didn't turn it around. The form that they were in coming into this one, 3-1 down at home with an extra player, I thought they could do it. I thought Kramjar had a good game, and it was a well taken goal. But I think this was I'll be honest, I'm surprised Everton didn't turn it around. But Liverpool, on reflection of the whole game in the first half, Liverpool deserved the 3 points, and I think it was a good redemption from what was a very embarrassing opening day at Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely. So Liverpool climbing the table now, up to 10th in the league, 4 points off 6th place Brighton, 3 points off Everton, 3 points off Aston Villa now. they're really in position where if they can put a run together in these last few games, they could get somewhere. Charlton coming up this weekend. Around the season, they play West Ham at home, followed by Man City away and Liverpool and Arsenal, at home. Not really the last two games of the season, but they should beat West Ham. Finish the season on 20 points. It's not too bad. That would be the same tally that Tottenham finished 11th on last season.
Wow. I mean,
it shows how the midfield has been a lot closer and taken points off each other. And I think Leicester, obviously not being as bad as Crystal Palace. I mean, Leicester they're only a point behind Palace's record from last season. They've got 4 games to go. I mean, the fact they haven't won yet this year, or they haven't got a point, they've lost every game so far this year, Leicester hasn't helped. But yeah, I think Liverpool done well to turn things around. 4 points off the top half. If they get some big results in the last 2 games of the season, maybe it'll be an even better season. They can get that win over West Ham, get to 20 points, should keep them up.
Yeah,
and they are almost safe now. I think I was looking at the Opta thing; it's 0.7% chance they finish bottom now.
Yeah.
So yeah, should be okay there, Liverpool. But they'd like to get top half. I think they play some really nice football, and they're in a good position. As for Everton, they could form finding an abrupt end.
Yeah, as I say, I thought they came into this one looking good, and I'm surprised that they were turned over in the fashion they were. Even the scoreline does look nice, but yeah, it was a good run, mate. It shows exactly what we were saying last week, though, where you don't give Phelan the permanent job yet. You just see how the season ends because results like this happen. And if they now go on a bad run, then suddenly you definitely revisit that conversation. But yeah, it's expected. It is only an interim manager, and bad results are always going to creep in. I'll be very interested to see how they now navigate a few tricky fixtures to end the season. But at the end of the day, they're safe. That's the main aim. In a season where you've sacked your manager and you stay up, it's not bad from Everton's point of view. And they're the kind of side I'm looking at going where they haven't got too much to play for now. They'll be thinking about building and going into the summer and going into next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, for mentioning Ema Gabaro, horrible to see her go down. Again, it hasn't yet been confirmed whether or not that is an ACL injury, but it did look rather serious. And yeah, absolutely gutted. A player who has so much potential, has already spent a long time on the sidelines because of an ACL injury. Looks like it could be another lengthy spell out for Gabaro. Really gutted for her. She's played really well in recent weeks. That's a massive shame for Gabaro and for Everton. Let's move on then to a slightly less high-octane game. Leicester City 0, 1 Brighton. This is very much one-way traffic. Brighton absolutely dominant.
Yeah, this was probably one of the most comfortable 1-0 victories I've seen in a very long time. I think that 1-0 makes it look like Leicester, once again, were only just beaten, but very different to that Villa game. Brighton were in complete control of this. They could have had a lot more. They could have a lot more, and Janina Leitzig was brilliant, to be honest, and made some big saves to keep the majority of the efforts out. I thought that everyone played. It was weird because everyone played well for Brighton whilst missing so many chances, and that's where they're such a weird, because they were brilliant. Seike also got the goal. Frank Kirby was magical. I thought again Kafaji was superb, but they all could have had at least 2 each. So yeah, it's difficult to judge Brighton at the moment because, as I say, they played really well. Players, were combining nicely, but they only won this game 1-0 against a Leicester side who are, in big trouble. So it's a win, but it'll be disappointing. But they also played well. So where do they sit? I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. They never looked like they were going to concede.
No.
They were quite wasteful again in front of goal. If Brighton don't sign a striker this summer, I will cry. How have they still? I mean, Seike scored and did okay in that striker position, but so many chances wasted this season. And I mean, you've got like the trifecta of players that are going to miss chances with Seike, Kafaji, and Madison Haley, but they all linked up really well. Just couldn't have the finishing touch. Frank Kirby had one where she couldn't quite get to the pass from Haley. Some really nice football. I think, again, as you say there, this could have been 3-4-0 Brighton. Really should have been. I think what's been interesting this season is that they've moved away from a system which was very open and very aggressive and fun to watch to something that's a little bit more balanced. And I think they've done well because of that. I mean, they're 6th in the league. Expected performance table suggests they've underperformed by 5 points, though. And they should be a lot closer to Tottenham, above Tottenham, actually, on this expected performance table. So they've been a little bit unlucky. Vidicic obviously had some time away as well. That didn't help Brighton as a team. They haven't, none of their January signings. I mean, they only signed Oladvedson. I think they think they signed anyone else. hasn't really bedded in yet. I mean, this is the kind of game where, at this point, why isn't she starting yet?
Yeah.
Did come off the bench in the 89th minute, but what impact does that really have? So, yeah, I obviously had a couple games there as well where they didn't have Seike and they didn't have Minami, and that was a big loss. But yeah, they're in a decent spot, Brighton. I think you look at their last few games in this season. Yes, they've got Man City, United, Arsenal, and Tottenham. So not the nicest run in. That will have an impact, and they probably should take more advantage of some of the fixtures in there. But they do play all those sides in a time in the season where it's going to be quite congested.
Yeah.
So maybe they could pick up some points against some of those bigger teams. I mean, they developed a real reputation last season of being able to really compete with the top side. So maybe they can do that again. But Haywire says Ajimang injury killed Brighton. Yeah, I think that was a big loss to them. Even then though, think back to Matchweek 2 this season where it was City versus Brighton. Ajimang had 2 or 3 chances in that game which he didn't take, and that could have been a very different situation. How different a world we could have lived in if Brighton had won that game, and maybe you're not thinking, let's see against Spurs too. Maybe that puts the pressure on, but yeah, Brighton just they've lacked a striker all season, and that was a big loss again. But Seike took a goal well. I mean, it's a lovely goal for Brighton. Kirby finding a load of space in midfield, and I mean, Fran Kirby doing what she does best with that load of space.
Yeah, I thought Kirby played brilliantly, and this ball through was just magnificent. I think that it was, clearly showing that Brighton missed her while she was out injured. It's just brilliant. You can't allow Fran Kirby to have that space to play because she will play a perfect ball through. That's what she did. Found Kafaji, who I think this was her best game in a Brighton shirt. I thought Kafaji was really, really strong in this. Could have had a couple of goals herself. But yeah, really did. And then, did well. And then I thought it was very smart from Kafaji to square this. Very easy to just head down and shoot. But she does well. She's aware of where Seike is and just lays it across to her and gives Seike the easiest job in the world. But a brilliant goal from Brighton, and the 3 players that played really well, combining nicely to put them 1-0 up. And at that point in the game, they could have been even more up, but a deserved lead, and went on to be a deserved win.
Just to look at it, the flip where they play devil's advocate a little bit. Kafaji in that position, I think she should shoot. Ultimately makes the right decision because they score, but it does feel like a player who's not got a lot of confidence at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she made the right decision. I think her angle was tighter, and Seike, because Leipzig had come out to her, I think Seike had an open goal. So I think she made the right decision. Yeah, 100%. There were times in this game where she either passed it when she should have shot or shot when she should have passed. But I think it shows that I think the one time she got the decision right, it went in the back of the net. But yeah, there were a whole host of chances that between Hayley, Kafaji, Seike and Kirby, if they'd made a little bit of a better decision or the pass had come off, they'd had a lot more, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a player that doesn't have a load of confidence. I think there'll be more selfish players. I'm not saying it's the wrong action at all, but there's more selfish players I think take that shot on. I think a player in good form and feeling confident takes that shot and scores.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Leicester, though, looking down and out, really. Bottom of the league now, a 4-point gap to West Ham. Really not in a position where they want to be. And up to this morning, 92% chance of being relegated now for Leicester. West Ham, the only other side there with any sort of chance, about 7%. So it's not looking great, is it, for Leicester City? Evidently don't have the quality, and I'd be really worried about their chances as well in the playoff game.
Yeah, they're in, because of the little games left, they are in desperate need of getting something from that game in hand. The fact it's Arsenal means that it would have to be something magical for Leicester now. But yeah, so I think if they don't get anything from that game in hand, which I don't expect them to, then for me they are down, or at least they will finish bottom of the league. And as you say, I think they've got to focus now on getting players into form and getting the team morale high going into that playoff game. Because I don't think they can get the results now to catch West Ham. And even if they do get 4 or 5 points, I think West Ham will probably pick up one more maybe in the last 3. But I think for Leicester now, it is vital they try and get a result to give them something to work with in that playoff game. If they go into that playoff game with another 4 losses and they go into that without having won in 2026, absolutely, I agree. You look at an informed side coming up from the Championship, they'll be in a much more positive position than Leicester will be. I think they have to get a result just to give them something to work with and give them a bit of a boost.
Yeah, I mean, they're averaging a goal every other game this season.
Yeah.
not particularly good when there are sides in this league. I mean, City averaging almost 3 goals a game.
Mm.
Leicester averaging half a goal a game at the
Yeah.
moment. Only 9 goals from 18 matches really isn't great. I think West Ham have been lucky, and we'll get to West Ham later. But I think West Ham have been really lucky that it's not more competitive.
Yeah.
Because they've not been good enough.
Oh, no.
And unless they win every game of the season, which I don't even think they're going to get a point in the last 3 matches, they play Liverpool, Aston Villa, and City.
Mm.
I don't think they're going to get a point. And even unless they win all 3 matches, they're going to finish on less points than Tottenham did last year in second bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, they're ahead of the Palace total, but only by 3 points.
Yeah.
Really poor season for West Ham. And yeah, kind of fortunate that Leicester are just nowhere near good enough to compete. But yeah, let's get on then to our next game, which is the North London Derby. We saved it till a little later in the show. Arsenal 5 to Tottenham. Erastroon performance from Spurs, and Arsenal took full advantage, so clinical, and punished all the mistakes.
Yeah, it was ruthless from Arsenal in front of goal. Every time Tottenham slipped up, they were there to punish. Alessio Russo was there to punish. Tottenham got it wrong, and they made too many individual mistakes, and you cannot do that. You're away at the Emirates. You've tried to be positive, tried to go aggressive, and I respect that because it's ballsy, but it did not pay off. And similar to last week, they end up getting thumped, and that is, they've got to go back to the drawing board in terms of that aspect with the big games. But yeah, Tottenham, too many individual errors playing out the back. Even when they got themselves back into the game, they were cost by another individual error. It was the Cop one. Just got themselves back into the game.
Yeah.
And I think that they were the architects of their own downfall. Tottenham, of course, Arsenal were brilliant in front of goal, and on another day, Arsenal don't punish all those mistakes, and Tottenham get away with it. But I think that this was promising from Arsenal. They've rightfully been criticised for being wasteful. They've rightfully been criticised for not creating chances. And while Tottenham did put them into some great positions, they did very well to take their opportunities, find the back of the net, be clinical, and punish Tottenham. I mean, I think it's the first time where they took the majority of their big chances in a football match. That is very rare that Arsenal do that. So massive credit to them. A brilliant hat-trick from Russo, and not really a derby, was it, at the end of the day?
No. I mean, it's not really ever been a derby, has it? I know how obviously we like to try and big these things up, but it's never really been a derby. But yeah, I think way too many mistakes from individuals. I think there were errors that Arsenal forced really well.
Yeah,
I liked how they were trying to put the ball into the right channel, the left hand side of Tottenham's defence, really target Nilden and Bartrip, and they were evidently trying to get Russo to make blindsiding runs off the shoulder of Koga and in behind Bartrip, and exploit that space. And I think Bartrip really struggled in this game. Arsenal recognised that was a weakness, targeted it quite deliberately. We're really good on the ball, but yeah, we're clinical. Where Tottenham frustrate me, because moments like that, it's like, oh, you've got a player who's not really good enough, and she got muscled off, and there was mistakes there. Where Tottenham frustrated me was the mistakes which were completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
I look at the corner, not marking Alessio Russo, Hannah Veek slipping over. That's an unforced mistake.
Yeah.
No, they haven't put down extra water so Veek slips over. And that's an unforced mistake. Russo then ends up unmarked and she heads it home without much issue. Cop overplaying. I think that's such an unforced mistake because you've got so many options there and you pass it directly to Alessio Russo. That was really poor. I look at the second goal where Russo gets in behind. I think he does really well on that one to get in behind it and takes a shot on from a decent angle. I think the Ford one is, you shouldn't be allowing Caitlin Ford to score. I think Hannah Veek is so far away from her and has to do better. But Arsenal do really well. That's a good move, and it's put into the box, and they've stretched Tottenham really well there. So yeah, I think they forced that mistake. The last goal, absolutely an unforced error. Don't know what Tottenham are trying to do, playing the ball around there. Arsenal steal it, slot through Steen Vassenius, who slots it past Lisa Kopp. Lisa Kopp didn't have a particularly good game. 8 shots on target from Arsenal, 5 goals. That is a devastating record, but yeah, I think Arsenal are really clinical here. Played some good football and capitalised well on Tottenham mistakes.
Yeah, they're banging form, and that's exactly what happens when you're on form and you come up against a side that have just been beaten 5-2. You're hungry. You fancy yourselves to get a result, and that's exactly what they did. It is the perfect thing. They just can't be stopped at the moment. You know, they're just beating team after team after team. Doesn't matter who it is. Chelsea, Man City, Tottenham. Doesn't bother Arsenal at the moment. They just don't seem to be beaten. I think that this was the perfect result they needed going into that quarterfinal second leg on Wednesday, because if they falter here or it's a difficult performance, then suddenly you're going into that Chelsea game after a drop of points or a bit of a silly or a clumsy win. But no, this was convincing. This was strong. There wasn't, apart from when it went 2-1, there wasn't really a point in the game where it looked any nervy or close at all. Perfect result for Arsenal. They could cycle through players in the second half. Yeah, Slagers couldn't have asked for much more, really. Another big win at the Emirates, and they keep winning games at the moment.
Yeah, it's very similar to last season.
Yeah.
The first half of the season was a little bit messy, but they've brought it together at the right time. 11 consecutive wins now for Arsenal in all competitions. Their last loss came in the League Cup semi-finals to Manchester United in January. So it's been a while. They've been very good recently. And they've got all the form, they've got the momentum behind them. So no excuses for them to not win the Champions League, is what I'm hearing. But they do climb above Manchester United, 2 games in hand as well, up into third. As I say, finding the form at the right time this season. Too late to fight for the league, but FA Cup and Champions League still in contention for both of those trophies. And I think Arsenal would be really disappointed if they didn't win either. I think that would be a pretty... I think that they've still played decently this season, but to not win anything this season, I think would be disappointing. I think they should be looking at winning something. Yeah. Could all the English clubs win a trophy each? If Arsenal win the FA Cup, may not win the Champions League. Who knows? Probably not, but you never know. I think it's been an interesting campaign for Arsenal. Lots of messy stuff in the first half of the season. Lots of teething issues with trying to adjust the new tactic. But I think the way they managed to keep players fit, I think they've now got an advantage over some other teams who are fatiguing massively. And they're in a good position coming to the end of this season. As for Tottenham, consistency for them, back-to-back 5-2 losses on the road. Not really ideal, but Nigel saying another congratulations to Tottenham for responding to a 5-2 loss with another 5-2 loss. Not the run they want at the moment, Tottenham. Obviously, it's other circumstances in the City games. They didn't have Koga, and that's their defence, really. They didn't have Koga and Hunt. This game still didn't have Hunt, but they did have Koga back. But similarly, too many mistakes. Yeah,
as I say, the individuals really let themselves down. I think obviously a lot of people are mentioning a massive drop off and that they aren't as good as they seem, but we knew this was going to happen. We knew the Asian Cup was going to kick in. We knew that they'd have something very similar to Brighton, which is where you lose a bit of momentum and then suddenly you get found out a little bit. And we know that they're not quite there yet. At points, Pitt were talking about Champions League, but we knew that wasn't really a consideration for them. They're absolutely fine. They're still developing as players, but also as coaches and as a team. I think this game and the City game show that Martin Ho got it wrong in both games, and he will learn from that. No manager wants to lose 5-2 back-to-back in back-to-back games, and he will develop on that. And I think that there's a lot to be excited about. They won't be caught, so very much expect them to finish 5th, and I think then they can look to build on. This is the whole point. This season was just putting the building blocks in place. Martin Ho coming in, they just want to get better and better year upon year. But I mean, it'd be a very good first step if they can finish best of the rest. And I think that next season they'll look to build on it. Wasn't their day. Had a bit of a dodgy run, but I think that shouldn't take away from the fact that they have looked promising across the season.
Yeah, they can't go up, they can't go down now. In terms of positions, they're going to finish 5th in the table. I mean, there's a slight chance if Brighton win their game in hand against Arsenal, they could finish 5th. I don't really see it happening with Brighton's fixture run. The fact they've got to play all of the top 4 isn't ideal. No. Tottenham are in a decent position. They've got left to play this season Manchester United, London City, Lionesses and Brighton. So, they're in a decent spot. That's not the nicest run, but not too worried about Tottenham. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Jamal says, is the Champions Cup a joke to you? Yes. Yes. Yeah, it is. The Champions Cup is a joke. But anyway, last game then of the game week. West Ham won London City Lionesses. Won London City Lionesses. This was not very fun to watch, and I am delighted. It was the only game that no one watched because everyone was watching Chelsea Aston Villa at the same time. Just so poor quality. 1 shot on target each. And that was it. And those are the goals.
I mean, people must think that we, taking the mick when we come to London City's game. But my days, this game
The
was
shot map looks like it hasn't loaded in.
this game rubbish. This is where in football it annoys me that draws get rewarded with points because neither side deserved anything from this game. They were really poor in front of goal, didn't really create anything, and just the football. There wasn't much. No one played any good football. The middle of the park felt like playground stuff at times, where everyone was just chasing the ball and kicking each other and kicking things. It just really did not. It really did not work. And I think that it was a mess from both sides. And the fact of taking a point from it is quite lucky because, as you say, one shot on target each, and they're going in, especially when you consider what West Ham's only shot on target of the game was. Una Surin from 25 yards out on the volley.
I mean, it's the kind of goal, because Leto makes a right mess of it, that you get misogynists on the internet going, oh, the goals need to be smaller. How do you look at that? I think the goal needs to be smaller. That's just stupid. It's just Leto makes a big mistake. The size of the goal hasn't had any impact. If the goalkeeper was too short, she couldn't reach it, fair enough. But no, she makes a right mess of it. It's idiots. But yeah, lovely counter-attacking move from London City for their goal. Brilliant volley. Outside of that, not a lot happened.
Yeah, it was, as you say, good counter-attacking goal, great pass from Godfrey to play Yana Fernandez through, and it is a good finish from Fernandez, and credit to her because she got wiped out in the process and did very well to still find the back of the net. You can probably argue that London City should have won it. I mean, Goodwin missed an open goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Godfrey the catalyst for everything positive.
Oh, she's brilliant.
Sets up Yana Fernandez for the first, and then for the second goal, breaks in behind, plays it across, and Isabel Goodwin somehow pokes it forwards and round. I couldn't believe it's like the front post, and she pokes it away at the far post. I was like, how on earth have you managed not to hit the target? Such an unlucky season for Isabel Goodwin. How on earth that one doesn't go in, I cannot believe. But yeah, they had the opportunities, but London City just ultimately didn't really take them. Outside of that, I mean, there was two chances for London City, one for West Ham. West Ham took theirs, London City took one, and they missed the other. But, oh God, not an enjoyable game of football to watch. As for Kosovo Asllani, much like Ima Gabado, gutted to see. It's a multiple cruciate ligament injury. Multiple ligament injury, I think, including the anterior cruciate ligament. I think that's probably going to be the end of her career, which is a really sad way for her to go out, but I just don't see recovery's going to be over a year. Most likely. She'll be 40 by then. I don't see London City renewing her contract. I think they'll probably put her into some sort of advisory role, which I think would be great.
Yeah.
But I don't see them renewing her playing contract next season. And yeah, it's a shame. I think they probably would have. I think she's been one of their better players this season and tried. I think there's such a lack of effort in this London City team. Yeah. This is like, yes, they can get themselves motivated for a game against Chelsea, but against West Ham, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Like Chelsea, you look at the subs coming off, you look at the energy in that team, they really wanted to go and do something. Here, there was none of that. It was so flat. And yeah, I think that's been a huge problem for London City. I think there is a problem in players that aren't motivated. It's noticeable that the players that I think have shown the most for London City weren't the signings they spent £2 million on.
Yeah.
It was the signings who, your Freya Godfrey, who joined the club in the was on loan at the club in the Championship, stepped up and has been really good. In the WSL. One of the standout players of this season, really, outside of the big teams. Really impressive campaign for her. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting what London City do over the summer. But what they've got to learn is that you don't need another Grace Goal Euro. You need more Freya Godfreys, players that are going to want to be involved in the team, that want to play for the badge and want to get somewhere. But I mean, Arsenal, what a big mistake to let Freya Godfrey go. They need a winger this summer. Would have solved a huge issue if they didn't let her go last summer. But ultimately, Beth Mead wouldn't go for London City, so London City signed Freya Godfrey, and Arsenal kept Beth Mead. But yeah, I think Man City not had a great year, have they? First half of the season was fantastic. I think the problem is, based on expectations, they've underperformed. Which, like, finishing now anywhere between... They can finish anywhere between 6th and 10th, really.
Yeah.
Anywhere there at the start of the season, I would have said, yeah, that's a good season. But when you come into the season, you spend £2 odd million and you say, we're going to get Champions League football... You set the bar so high. They just need to come in and say, oh, we're just going to survive.
Yeah.
And that's very much what Proisha did. And that wasn't good enough for London City. And they brought in Edamai Straight. Other than Leicester City, no side has scored less points than London City since Maestro came in. 6 points. Only one win since he came in. Only one clean sheet since he came in. It's not good, is it?
No,
For Eden Maestro, really not good reading.
No, it's not. And I think that, again, people thought it was a piece of genius to go and sack Croatia and bring in Maestro, but we rightfully criticised it, and now we're seeing why.
I love being vindicated, in my opinion.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think long-term, will it pay off? There's a slight chance, but I don't see it happening. And, yeah, they're really not. Yeah, as you say, and everything just feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Big point against Chelsea. Okay, you're playing second bottom West Ham, who are on a bad run of form. Go and beat them. Oh, we draw in one of the worst games of football of the season. And that's the frustrating point from London City, is that they do something right, and then they go and undo it all the week, the next week by playing, really, really poor again.
Yeah, absolutely. But not an enjoyable game of football. London City, second worst on the form table at the moment. Really not in a great spot. West Ham, not good either, to be fair. Groino's come in and saved their season, really, because I think if they kept Skinner, they'd probably be bottom. But they got a couple of results, and the fun's over now.
Yeah.
They're not playing well. It's not enjoyable to watch. There seems like there's so many talented players in that West Ham squad, but for whatever reason, it's just not clicking at the moment. Yeah. It hasn't worked tactically. I think Groino's come in with very much the mindset of let's just survive, and maybe next season we'll start to see the attacking players thrive again. But yeah, this has not been a good season for West Ham at all. We were there in December, and the mood was very sour, very low, and I don't think it's shifted that much under Groino, which isn't great. I think that there is a lot of work to be done there at West Ham over the summer. We'll be interested to see whether they can hold on to some of their better players, whether they can recruit effectively, because I think next season is going to be interesting. If you're looking at the moment, Charlton, Birmingham, Crystal Palace coming up, I think they could survive fine, but Birmingham could put money in.
Yeah.
I think Palace will have learnt from the last time they were in the WSL. If it's a Bristol City or a Newcastle, they're going to put money in. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if Leicester City survive the playoff game, maybe West Ham will be okay, because they just don't have any money to invest. But I think at the moment, they'd have to be serious contenders to go down next season, because I look at the table and I don't see who else goes down.
No.
And this is my worry about teams coming up, is will they invest enough to make, like London City have, will they invest enough to make it super competitive? Because if not, I just think we're going to end up in a situation where the two teams that come up go back down, like we were before London City. Where the teams that come up go down. Yeah. At least for the playoff, hopefully there won't be as much chopping and changing between the leagues. But yeah, we'll have to see what pans out. Right, shall we jump into Aerial Fantasy?
Yes.
Because I've had a stonking game week.
It's rubbish,
and
really, isn't
the
it?
world wants to know about it. Very happy with my performance again in Aerial Fantasy. I had a great and really struggled to start the season, but I've really come to form at the end of the season. 76 points for me this week. Very happy with that, considering I've seen a lot of Aerial Fantasy content creators. They haven't done as well as that. No. Very happy with that. Falk 1 point, Berman 1 point. Not really the stars of the show. 2 from Gapset, 2 from Ueki, 2 from Shaw as well. My 2 transfers this week, Ueki and Kirby, and I captained Kirby. Didn't really pay off fully, but I'm happy with 12 points from Frank Kirby on the captaincy. 5 from Bate Olsen for an assist, but the big scorers for me this week, and 5 for Knack as well. Big scorers though, Holland with 15, Lauren James with 13, Kirsten Kasperai, 18 points. Can't ask for much more than that. 76 points scored. Yeah, very, very happy with how that's panned out. And in terms of the leagues now, I'm up to 33rd in the Women's Football Chat League, a place above a certain someone named Harry. We are on the same points. 1,072. Joint. I'm just ahead because I scored more this week, I believe. That's how that one works. I'm in great form. I'm coming for the top 10, I reckon.
Yeah, I was thoroughly disappointed by my game week. 56 points, which is still above average, but quite considerably lower than everyone else towards the tops of the leagues. I was absolutely saved by Kirsty Hansen's 12, who has been so
who, let's say you benched.
Okay, yeah, I did bench Kirsty Hansen, but Emily Fox didn't play, so I got Hansen's 12 subbed in, and I also had Kasper on 18. So between 2 players there, that is 30 of my 56 points on 2 players. It was then a clean sheet for Ellen Dozy with 6, Godfrey with the assist got 5, and Beta Olsen, also with an assist, got 5. Everybody else didn't really score. I captained Alyssa Thompson. Really didn't know who to captain this week. So I went for Thompson, didn't pay off. She only got 2, doubled to 4.
Should have captained Kirsten Kasparov.
I should have captained Kirsten
Or
Kasparov.
Kirsty Hansen.
Oh, yeah, but I was never going to do that. Vandela 2, Shaw 2, Carpenter 1, and then a very disappointing -1 from Grace Fifth.
I remember when we came into the studio, because obviously we were watching the Merseyside Derby, and then we came in to set up and go live for the Manchester Derby. And you were buzzing. You were going, oh, Grace Fist, 6 points in the bag. Maybe might get some bonus or something. You're very excited. Finished on -1, so that didn't get a plan, did it?
Yeah, she's an idiot. I don't know what she was thinking. If she stayed on the pitch, they should have kept a clean sheet, and she shouldn't have got sent off. Very frustrating. 56, and as you say, it sees me. It's like the 4th, 5th week in a row where I have to keep dropping down the TWC League, and
look who's above you now.
Oh, that is so depressing.
Wonderful to see. But I'm 12th in the second chance league. I've been brilliant since the turn of the year.
You need a second chance. Who needs a second chance? You shouldn't count.
Well, I'm higher than you overall now as well.
Rubbish.
I'm higher than you.
Rubbish.
Higher than you in the league. But yeah, top of the league at the moment now is Stan Lee, who I think is top of the world. So not really. Don't know how we're going to compete with.
I'm going to beat him next year.
With them. Top of the world, 1,200 points. So we're
only
150.
I'm going to storm that. I've still got 2 chips.
But there's no El Fantasy next year.
I've still got bench boost and triple captain to use in the last 3 game weeks.
I've got no chips.
Oh, there you go, Wally. Yeah, I'm on the money. I've got 2 chips to use in 3 weeks. That's only 1 week where I don't have a chip.
What you got left?
Triple captain, which I'll probably use on someone like a Russo next week in the Arsenal double.
Fair enough.
And then bench boost, which I'll probably just throw out.
Plan for?
No, I'll just throw that out on the final day.
Final day, weird and
wacky things happen on the final day. Just throw it in, see what happens.
Fair enough.
That's my logic.
There we go. First, I don't even know want to know what my team is doing. No.
You can't give up.
Yeah. Says the bloke who stopped playing FPL.
Yeah, that's FPL though. Rubbish. Aerial Fantasy's great.
Brilliant. Anyway, that does round up this week's show. Hope you have enjoyed. If you're only just hopping into the stream, then go back and rewind and watch the segments. We will have the timestamps as well. So if you are just watching back, those will be on there in a few moments. Once we finish, I'll go and put them on there. And then, it'll be viewable for people who have missed the show. That, though, is everything. We'll be back throughout this week with streams. Nothing on Wednesday for the Champions League. Second next week, we will be live for the double up on Thursday. Can't wait for those games. Lionesses taking on Wolfsburg. And we're going to see if Real Madrid can overturn a 4-goal deficit away at the Nou Camp. I believe they could absolutely do it, but we'll have to see. Then this weekend, FA Cup coming your way on Sunday. We've got the single stream of, I believe it's the Arsenal game.
Arsenal versus Brighton.
Brighton. Someone around here knows what we're doing. And a double header on Monday, which is Chelsea versus Tottenham and Manchester City taking on Birmingham. We've also got something exciting coming on Monday, not on our channel, but look out for that as well. That, though, is everything. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.